This video is about Minolta M-Rokkor 90mm f4. A simple lens that is so quirky but at the same time so good that I ended up buying it twice. Once in 2015 and once in 2020. So let's talk about it. First of all, why 90mm? Well, let's say that I wanted to have a holy trinity of M lenses. A very personal version, of course. One everyday focal length that for me is 35mm, one ultra-wide focal length for indoor shots and some creative outdoor shots that again for me is 50mm, and finally a longer focal length for more reach or for some portrait work. In the Leica M board, the longest available focal length is 135mm, but I think it is a little hard to focus with rangefinder, and of course I always find it a little too tight for portraits. So that's why I'm always looking for a good 90mm, because it serves two purposes for me: portraits and also more reach for landscape and travel photos. So why this Minolta? Well, mostly because it is one of the cheapest options. Let's go back to 2015 where I purchased this Leica M8 as my very first Leica. Back then I used this Minolta as my longest M lens, and of course needless to say that I loved it, and I even kept a little Minolta after I sold my Leica M8 and used it on a Sony A7 mirrorless body. So let's have a look at the lens itself. Having a modest aperture of f4, it is very small and only weighs 246 grams, and the filter size is only 40.5mm. The optical formula is very simple, showing the lens's age that goes back to 1973. When it comes to image quality, the sharpness is good across the frame. I never felt it lacks in sharpness department. At least up to 24 megapixel of my Leica M240. And of course on film, the sharpness is more than enough. The bokeh is not bad. Of course, it is an f4 lens, so not a bokeh machine. But if you get close to your subject, the background blur is not bad, but also not super good. But the major downside of this lens is purple fringing for backlit subjects. It is bad and you gotta keep an eye on it, but if you shoot it on black and white film, nothing to worry about. Another factor is flare control. You gotta consider that this is an old lens and doesn't have the modern coatings of today's lenses. So if there is a strong light source in the frame or slightly out of the frame, you get reduced contrast, but it is not a deal breaker in my opinion. So what is the final verdict? I think if you have an M-mount camera, it is a very good travel lens, especially on film. It is light and small and cheap enough that if something happens to it while traveling, it is not the end of the world. So that's it. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. Also feel free to follow me on Instagram, Blue Sky, and X, also known as Twitter.